Hi, welcome to the Mindful Mobility Tech Talk series. I'm Brian Trice. I'm the Executive Director for the Columbia-Willamette and Western Washington Clean Cities Coalitions. I'm also the Conference Director and founder of the Green Transportation Summit Expo. I'm here today with Mark Fitz, President of Star Wilco.
And I'm Mark Fitz, President of Star Wilco, and I've recently authored a paper called the 2025 Market Outlook for Diesel and Oregon.
We're going to dive into the R99 or renewable diesel here a little bit more. With the recent things that are happening here within, Oregon, California, and Washington, you've written a really good overview of what could be happening or what's, predicted to happen and stuff. I want you to touch a little bit more on that.
We at Star Oil created a market outlook for 2025, focused primarily on the first quarter, but we make a conclusion on what we think for the 2025 year. And the reason why is in October 11th, there was a force majeure letter from Neste saying that they had issues with their Singapore plants that curtailed renewable diesel moving to the Northwest. They're roughly a third of the product into the Pacific Northwest for renewable diesel. That left everybody short. We had relationships. We are not a Neste partner. We work with some other players. But it definitely got felt as a lot of municipal fleets started calling everybody going, where the heck's our products? And based on these questions, I started going down a rabbit hole on a nerd way where I was seeing stuff that I didn't see reported. So, we as a team worked up that market outlook, and it's out on our website right now. And the way it kind of leads is, why is diesel going to be more expensive in 2025 and more? And you got a bunch of things. The first thing, the biggest thing, is Oregon is standing back up its climate protection program, CPP. The CPP creates a cap at the rack. The idea is they're going to cap the size of the fossil fuel market, and that if you're growing the economy with fuels, you have to add low carbon fuels. So think of it like musical chairs. You've got fossil fuel diesel, fossil fuel gasoline market. Like musical chairs, every year they're going to remove, if there's 100 chairs today, next year there'll be 97 chairs. The year after that, there'll be 94 chairs. And if you're going to add chairs, it needs to be a low carbon fuel under the program. Oregon also has a clean fuels program, a CFP. The CFP stacks with the climate protection program, pathways into the clean fuels program, qualify you. If you're in the clean fuels program during your credit, you are not a gallon adding to the market share of the climate protection program. Now, if that makes sense, it can get pretty crazy. But Oregon had this program a few years ago. It got shut down by a court. They've now since went and repromulgated the rules, replacing the problems that existed before the court. And they're now standing that up right now this year. Cold on the street, cap and invest, or cap at the rack. You've got a value. If you sold fossil fuels in the history of Oregon, you now have those allowances. That has value because you can sell into that market. That's going to raise the cost of diesel. Renewable diesel and biodiesel do not pay that increased cap the rack. They come in underneath that program. Here's what's fascinating. As this program comes on in Oregon, you also have a Portland renewable fuel standard. Portland is functionally removed. They've outlawed fossil fuels going forward, and it's a phase-in program. So you're now required to use so much 15% biodiesel or renewable diesel content today. But the trick is the Portland RFS requires that you have below a 40 CI, meaning any product you sell needs to be a 60% reduction in carbon. What's fascinating is most of the renewable diesel, most of the biodiesel product out there, most of the biofuel is above a 40 CI. So it basically means only some fuels can come into Portland's RFS. So Oregon's standing up the cap and invest program. Portland has an RFS program, which complicates it. And then you add on top of that, California has mandated for off-road use, they must use renewable diesel. So you have this huge market, which I believe is the ninth biggest economy in the world if it was a country, sucking all the renewable diesel, setting a price for renewable diesel. You have Portland, where renewable diesel typically meets the Portland RFS, but biodiesel does not. You have this clean fuels program / climate protection program coming together. And then on top of that, you have a federal standard. This is where I'm about to drop it. The federal subsidy of $1 a gallon dropped off December 31st. was replaced with a producer's tax credit, a lower subsidy, but that lower subsidy bars imported renewable diesel and biodiesel, but imported renewable diesel, which is a third of the renewable diesel Portland was getting for its RFI. That all converged, and I wrote up a paper on that saying, hey, y'all, diesel's probably more expensive. If you want renewable diesel, you should probably get a vendor who can contract that for you. And by the way, we've got contracts. That's kind of what that paper was. That makes sense, or did I kind of drop in?
No, that's like I said, when I read your paper, I learned more about everything you were just talking about, the cap, all the things that go into what these programs are. So like, I got it was like a 101 class, right? Because I've always had, folks that work for me, for coalitions, for the stuff that we do, even whether it's at GKC and we're talking about renewable diesel or products and everything, but actually get to understand what all these terms mean, right? What these programs are and stuff. So it was really, it was an eye-opening experience to read stuff. I was excited to share different.
Yeah, my team's got me. I got to write up a whole thing of what the acronyms all mean, because there's so many freaking acronyms and you can't find any, even with AI, like you have trouble like putting them all in one context with one place. So that was what came to this, is we have to write up that as well. So that, the future of searching is going to be AI. So at least we've got that to where if someone's looking for it, AI will pull that and serve it up in a search, because you currently can't make sense of the alphabet soup regulating low carbon fuels.
Now, with what you wrote up though here, right, in this whole paper, we've shared with a lot of our colleagues and people close to us in this transportation world and stuff. What do you think the impact of what you wrote? Let's just say that, it's all true.
But my expectation is what we're going to see is Mesty's plant went down in October. I don't believe we'll know in 2 months, because like it trails by 60 days what the Energy Information Agency report for imports. But, roughly we'll know, but I don't believe anything's come from Singapore to Portland since October, right? So you pulled essentially a third of our operational product out of the Northwest. If you look at retailers, if you're selling gasoline to Beastly, Oregon, as a Chevron, a Shell, Sinclair, Marathon, 76 brands, right? Like if you're selling product into Oregon, you have trouble decarbonizing your gasoline. You only have so much ethanol you can blend. So that renewable diesel is your rounding math. So my ability to get renewable diesels, I believe, though I've not been told this, but I believe the reason I can get renewable diesel is because branded retailers have to move so much renewable to offset their gasoline volumes, if that makes sense. So you've got that going on. Nesty was selling wholesale, not selling retail. They had some retailers who were pulling it. You also had a plant out of Louisiana called Green Diamond, which was selling a ton of product. Now appears to not be. We've got a plant called Montana Renewables, which is selling quite a bit of product for Pacific Northwest out of Tacoma as well as Portland's. You've got Chevron, which was formerly RAG Chevron, or as I call it, Craigie, Chevron, RAG Incorporated, Craigie. I think that's cute as a button, Craigie. Chevron selling product out here. Shell appears to be buying a good chunk of the Montana renewable product. I haven't bought a drop off of Shell, but I know I've talked to their brokers, right? You've got Phillips 66. They have a renewable diesel plant out of California. I also, from what I understand, they're buying Montana renewable. So they have made a big push for R99 at retail in Portland. If you go to a 76 station, it's R99 on that pump, right? I know Chevron is also selling an R55 B20, I believe, with a little bit of diesel. The reason for that is CARB has these requirements on NOx. That blend runs into that CARB requirement. Their West Coast tracks that. You've also got other renewable diesel plants coming on. Marathon has said they're going to be a big player in renewable diesel in the Portland market out of the Zenith terminal. I haven't seen that product come on board. HollyFrontier Sinclair, which bought the Shell refinery, I believe in Anacortes. I'd expect that what we saw as a $1 a gallon subsidy dropped off renewable diesel and bios. Everyone knew that fall off of that subsidy was going away. Everyone loaded every tank they could get up, right? They moved everything they could. They blended a 1% diesel because that was the way it worked. They loaded the tanks up. I know I got all the bio I could get. I got all the renewable I can get. We filled up all our tanks. So you got January where not a lot of products in the move because everyone's filled up. You go into February, people are going to start moving some stuff. You go into March, I bet Nestle's back in full force. Here's the catch. We have a California mandate for renewable diesel used in certain applications. So if you have that mandate, we must pay what California is paying for diesel to get a drop of renewable diesel. We may be able to get a gallon or two because retail is mandated under a climate protection program to move so much renewable if they're growing their volumes. But to get an incremental gallon beyond that, you got to pay the California price. California is typically 50 cents, 40 cents easy, maybe even $1 higher than Oregon. So to buy a gallon of renewable, it's going to be more incrementally. If you want to guarantee a gallon of renewable, you got to match the California price. And that's what municipal fleets in particular that really want R99 are going to have to be dealing with. And that's what the report talks about.
So you had mentioned the blender's tax credit though, right? So how does that now, I mean, now that that's going away, right? And you're looking at the cost between California, Oregon, Washington. Washington's obviously much higher than
Well, Oregon's cap of the rack is sold at auction, which could push the price up. The cap of the rack cost on diesel in Washington State at one point last year was $1, or year before last was $1 a gallon, right? So this year it's been trailing around 30, 50 cents. It's been a lot more reasonable, right? But their system is different than Oregon system in the way the allowances are allocated to get them. They're seeking to beat California to a decarbonation number. Washington is. Oregon is looking just to incrementally improve the CO2 footprint of the state. There's a difference there. Oregon's program is also a rule-based program. Washington's and California's are a statute-based program. Washington and California are seeking to align with Quebec in Canada to have an open market to trade allowances. Oregon's is not connected with that currently. So you have those differences.
All right. So from a cost standpoint, looking at where prices were just, last year or last month, basically, from like December till now with the blender's tax credit going away and stuff, what do you see as the average cost, at least in Oregon? What's going to be the average cost of R99 or, any of the actual renewables, whether it's R20, R50, R99, you have B20, you have all the between, biodiesel and like renewable diesel. What's going to be the cost difference now? And what do you think the average, once again, I know it's all different, cities and all that, but what's the average cost of R99 going to be per fleet?
Before the court rolled it back, it was easily north of 20 cents a gallon, cap of the rack thought. I would say it's 30 cents, but people could disagree with me either way. With where that's at, I'd expect we're easily 15 cents a gallon currently, cap the rack. Though, for January 4th, the day when we're talking, right? I haven't seen any type of big jumps or spikes or changes in the market. But I predict as January progresses, you're going to see people realizing I can make money without moving a gallon. I should price that value, if that makes sense. Because I have a cap of the rack value that I could realize. Now they've got branding commitments. They sign contracts with gas stations that say I moved this many gallons and they've got to provide that. Then you have the Portland Renewable Fuel Standard, which says if I sell within Portland and I contracted to meet your needs, I've got to move so much of this, right? So you've got that as a real thing. But ultimately, I'd expect that Oregon will continue to be north of the rest of the United States average cost of diesel. Hopefully, we're a little lower than Washington, but we probably track Washington, where we're definitely lower than California. But if you want to buy renewable diesel, I predict renewable diesel tracks that California diesel price. That will be the premium, whatever that would be on any given day. And if you sign a 12-month contract or a 90-day contract for renewable diesel, meaning I look out, this is the gallons I need, I want to guarantee I've got it, that price probably beats California, but we don't know what the future holds. So don't blame your fuel vendor if you sign that contract and the world goes crazy. That's the nature of future, right? So, but I know for my customers, I've sought to attract contracts to guarantee supply for the majority of what I need, and then I play around the edges to help offset that.
So one of the things you mentioned that probably end with this, but you mentioned like the different programs within Oregon, since we're here in Oregon and stuff. You mentioned the Climate Action Plan and then the LCFS, right? Or the
Climate Protection CPP.
Yes.
And then the CFP.
So what's the...
We're Oregon. We're Gen X. We don't follow California's title. We got our own stuff.
We got to think, but what's
we'll one off? We're cooler than them.
But what's the difference between those two programs? And does what we've been talking about with the R99, does it affect those programs in different ways with the different programs? And what's the difference there? And where are fleets going to get the best value out of it, I guess?
So here's what I feel. Everyone talks about what you can make for money in California if you sell a biofuel, low carbon fuel. But California's only got so many paths into it. And one of the lucky things in my younger life was I served on several planning commissions. City of Portland, City of Damascus, which no longer exists, and Clackamas County. Land use on the West Coast is complicated. So just because you can get that value, part of that value is how hard it is to build out a project to be able to receive products into that state. So I believe there are bottlenecks into California, and they're not bottlenecks to the same degree into Oregon, right? To where you could ship rail to Oregon, we can grab it. You can ship rail to Washington, you can grab it. You can ship rail to Idaho, transfer to Oregon, Washington, grab it. So my expectation, the greatest value would be to look directly to a renewable diesel plant and book rail cars into the state. If you did that 12 months in a row for your needs, my expectation is 9 months of the year you'd come out way ahead is what I'd expect. So yeah, I don't know if that answered that question, but where it's at, you've got a lot of market dynamics. The biggest one is where you can move fuel to. Even though they may be able to get $1 a gallon more into California, can you get it into California? How long do you wait for the rail car to be offloaded in California? Right? The dynamics of our industry were built around World War II and pipelines. These carbon regulations radically upends that infrastructure to where it all has to be rail or barge. Then you have the federal blender's tax credit goes away for a producer's tax credit. Well, the imported stuff by barge goes away. So unless it's coming out of the Gulf Coast, because you've got Port Arthur, Texas, you got Geismar, Louisiana, and you've got, I can't believe I'm forgetting it, the other Green Diamond, which is right next to Port Arthur, but it's like a different, or excuse me, not Port Arthur, but Geismar. When you go to Louisiana, all the refineries are built in their own city, right? And they're all adjacent to each other, but it's just that city is just because it's Louisiana. So anyways, you have two major renewable diesel plants in Louisiana. I think you actually have a third that's much smaller, but the two biggest in the United States are Green Diamond and Chevron REG, right? And then Green Diamond has another one in Texas. Those are moving through the Panama Canal to the West Coast. Then you have Montana Renewable in Montana. That's shipping by rail to the Portland market, which is moving to barges to California. But I'd point this out. Boats are early or late. Trains are early or late. Tanks are finite in their space. So occasionally they may need to move product, if you follow what I'm saying. And then you've got Holly Frontier Sinclair, HF Sinclair, which has a number of renewable diesel plants. And you have Marathon, which has a number of renewable diesel plants, one of which in California is a joint venture with Neste. That plant, I believe, the nameplate on it is like 800 million gallons a year, which is less than what Neste ships from Singapore by quite a bit. So you've got, all these programs are ratcheted up, and New Mexico triggered carbon regulations just like us. New York, I believe it's imminent this year. Massachusetts has incentives. I expect they follow. Philadelphia, I'd expect to follow, or Pennsylvania, I expect to follow, right? And Canada has carbon regulation as well that's coming down. So you've got a lot of value being placed on these products, but we have a well-worn path to move stuff into Oregon. So I hope our fleets can get it.
Well, we want to thank Mark Fitz from Sarlo for joining us this week and Mindful Billy Tech Talks. And we look forward to seeing you guys coming up in the next couple of weeks.